Three, two, one. Everybody, Mike Beer here. We got a lot of stakes action at Canterbury Park on Wednesday night. Several stakes races on that Wednesday night card. We're going to take a look at two of them, beginning with race number 7, which is the Mystic Lake Mile. This is for older horses. They're going to go 1 mile on the turf course there at Canterbury Park. Big field of 12 entered for this field. Let's get the field up there right now so you can take a look at it. We'll note here that the sort of lukewarm morning line favorite here, number 4, 2 Emmys, is not expected to run in this race. They have found a different spot to run this horse in, so he's not going to shift to Canterbury to run in this race. Yes, he would have been the horse to beat in here. This is a horse who, in 3 of his last 6 turf starts had come up with a triple-digit buyer. He, of course, pulled off a pretty big upset to win a Grade 1 at Arlington Park last summer to kick off that string. Listen, he was the horse to beat in this race. I personally was going to take a little shot against him, so I'm a little disappointed that he's not going to show up for this race. But in some ways, as being the horse to beat and maybe just the right horse finding the right field, maybe it just opens this race up that much more to some other horses, because there are several very, very interesting horses in this race. I still think we have a pretty good group here with a lot of different ways to go. So let's start off looking at this race by checking out the Timeform US Pace Projector. Can't really disagree with the Pace Projector too much. I don't know if the number 12, Agent Peter Graves, I don't know if he's going to be able to make the lead in this race. He is a horse who likes to race forward. It feels like he's in a pretty tough spot here. He drew a really, really tough post for him way out on the far outside, and there is plenty of speed to his inside. I agree with the red bar scenario that Timeform US is laying out. I do think this is going to be a pace that's going to be fast to solid. I don't know if it's going to be the 12 on the early lead, but even if it's not, there are going to be horses to his inside who are going. Certainly the 7 Touch Revenge is one of those drama courses in really good form right now. He's the number 9. He likes to be forward in his races. So I do think there is going to be pace in this race. We'll see how fast they get. And we'll see what they decide to do with that 12, who again is in a really tough spot here, but he does like to race forward in his races. Let's just get right into the contenders here, because there are a lot of them. I feel like this is a really wide open kind of race. Personally, I feel like the horse that's down on the rail, number 1, Street Ready, I think he's interesting in here. I don't know how reliable this horse is necessarily. He is only 3 for 15 in his career on turf, but he's run several good races. I still go back to a race that he ran as a 3-year-old in an allowance race in April of 2020 down at Gulfstreet Park, where he just overcame a really, really tough trip to win. And I thought after that this was a horse you might be hearing from going forward on the grass. That sort of hasn't been true, I guess, but he still runs some good races. 2 starts after that allowance race that I was just referencing. They took him to Keeneland to run the Grade 3 Transylvania that summer. He just missed by a nose. He ran well. He got a great trip in that race, and he wound up just missing at the end at a price. But he still ran really well, and that was the final start this horse made as a 3-year-old. Unfortunately for him, he missed the rest of the summer into the fall when maybe he could have done some real developing. He went 1 for 5 last year. He did improve, I think, as a 4-year-old last year. He only went 1 for 5. The win was, again, in his final start. His season was over at the end of July. He didn't really get to race beyond that, but he looked really good winning that allowance race at Ellis Park. Had a good trip, took over readily, was an easy winner that day, and there were a couple of decent horses behind him. Now he's made 3 starts so far this year. He got wired off the layoff. He came back in a Keeneland allowance race. They tried a little bit of a different tactic with him in that Keeneland race. Too bad they put him right up close to the pace. Not a big excuse for him there. He was a big price that day. It was a solid field. I didn't love the race that he ran that day, but maybe he has some kind of an excuse. He still ran a 90 buyer speed figure, which is a career best for him. And he came back last time at Churchill Downs, and I got to be honest, I just feel like maybe they just went a little bit too far with trying to keep him off the pace, but they took a good hold of this horse after he didn't break sharply from the gate, and he just sat last all the way around the track, and they're still last as they came into the stretch of that race. I thought he raced on pretty gamely in there. The horse that won the race went wire to wire. This horse, to me, really had no chance in that race. I thought he actually ran pretty well to get up for 4th. I think he comes into this maybe in deceptively good form. He's got a great post on the rail. He's got really good tactical speed in a race that could set up for him. I thought there were things to like about Street Ready at a price in this race. I also thought there was things to like about the 2 Spanish Kingdom, who's shipping up for Joe Sharp. I just like a lot of this horse's races, and he's another one who, to me, who can race from off the pace, and that could really come into play in a race like this. This horse has 3 wins on the turf so far. He's actually finished first 4 times. He was disqualified from another victory. All of his races, though, have come from off the pace. I think that's going to be key in here. The only, little problem that I had with Spanish Kingdom coming into this race is so far he hasn't, really been that effective in his stakes races. There have only been 4 of them. He hasn't embarrassed himself in any of them, but he wasn't, quite good enough to get the job done. And that includes his most recent start. It was off a little bit of a layoff. They ran him in the opening verse at Churchill Downs, and I realize you want to, give horses the benefit of the doubt for running over that turf course, which hasn't always been great. I just didn't think he ran that well in that race. The winner of that day, Grace Fable, was very well rated on the lead, I thought. But I thought all in all, Spanish Kingdom got a pretty good trip. I don't know. I didn't love his most recent start, but I like a lot of his races prior to that. And I could be willing to give him the benefit of the doubt in here if he's a fair price. And I think the 6-1 money line might be a fair price. And I'm still interested. I kind of wanted to go in a different direction. I can't make a case for the 3 Bellamy's Roan. He's making his turf debut here. He's 1 for 14 on the main track. He doesn't have any turf pedigree at all. And based on what he's done so far, he's just not going to be competitive here. He has to be a totally different horse on the turf. He's a big price if you like him. The Forest 2 Emmys, he's not going to run here. He was going to be probably the horse to beat. I was going to try to beat him, but he won't show up. It opens the race up a little bit. Number 5, My Indy, could easily make a case for this horse. It took this horse forever to break his maiden. They had this horse in Southern California to start his career running in mostly maiden claiming races. And he just couldn't break through. He hit the board a few times. He wasn't good enough to get to break his maiden on that circuit. They finally, at the end of last year, shipped him out to Turf Paradise. And since he's gotten down to that track, his form has completely turned around. 8 turf starts down at Turf Paradise starting last November, right up through March of this year. He's won 5 of those. He finished second in the other 3. There is a stakes win 2 starts back over, sort of a modest field. But he was very game to win that day from just off the pace. They came back in another $100,000 stakes race back in early March with this horse. He had a career best 90 buyer, just missing by a nose. Long duel in that race. But he was right up with the pace the entire way with the eventual winner, who was the odds-on favorite. And this horse just missed. He ran well again. He does have that sort of running style, though, where it feels like, especially since he's gotten good, where he wants to be forward in his races. That might not play here. But he's back on turf for this after getting rained off last time. That's a race you just want to put a line through. And if he can show up here, maybe pull some kind of a trip and run, one of his good races, which he's just been running without fail lately. This horse could play in this race, and he's 20-1 on the morning line. The 6 is Mr. Dumas. He's a contender here. He's very consistent. Another horse who we just recently saw in the opening verse, where I thought he got a good trip. Didn't really have an excuse in there as the favorite. He wound up finishing 3rd in that race. Wasn't really taken with that performance. Let's go 2 starts back for Mr. Dumas. I think it's sort of a similar situation. We have a replay of the 10th race at Keeneland. This is an allowance race. He's favored again here as part of an entry. And, I just don't really see the excuse here. The horse that beats him, Busy Channel, is a pretty nice horse and was in front of Mr. Dumas the entire trip in here. But you see Mr. Dumas there as it came off the turn. He had dead aim on the winner here. He did his best with it, and he just couldn't get by that horse. He was denied, settled for second best. I didn't love that performance. I didn't love his most recent start in the opening verse. Obviously, this is a horse who's a graded stakes winner on the grass. He's multiple graded stakes placed. He has races, that are going to make him really tough in here, and you have to like his tactical speed. Maybe now with the 4 2 Emmy scratching out of this race, maybe he's the favorite now. And I don't know if I would want Mr. Dumas as the favorite. He can win, though. That's for sure. Number 7, it's Touch Revenge. I like some of Touch Revenge's races as well. They brought him here to run in a stakes race on turf last month. That race wound up getting rained off, and it was a big advantage for Touch Revenge once that race was moved to the main track because he handles dirt fine. He went off as an odds-on favorite. He won pretty easily with a 90 buyer. But his turf form prior to that was pretty good. I liked his win at Lone Star 2 starts back. I don't think he was beating a great field that day. I just liked the way that he did it. The pace was pretty solid. They wanted to lead with him. They got it. And he just was really, really game all through the stretch to hold on and win that race. I like his turf form overall. He's another horse who wants to be forward in here, and that might work against him if this pace gets fast. And I did really feel like there was a chance he could be competitive up front. That sort of holds me back on wanting Touch Revenge, especially if the morning line is right and he winds up going off around 5-1. I kind of wanted other horses, but I really respect Touch Revenge. I think he can win this race. The 8 is Goldie. His turf form's only okay. I don't really love this horse's turf races. More recently, they've concentrated on dirt with him, and they stretched him all the way out to 1.5 miles, 2 starts back to win a non-winner of 3 allowance race. He ran fine that day, but I don't think that the form of that race is going to translate over to a race like this one. He's not meeting a bunch of killers here. He obviously handles turf for a really, really good trainer. I think I think you do want to take Goldie's chances seriously. He's also a horse who could benefit if the pace goes in front of him, because while he's shown speed on dirt, on turf, that's not really his running style. I don't know. I guess the question is, how much do you think he's really improved for Diodoro? It kind of feels like he's improved a little bit for Diodoro, and now he's going to come back to turf for that trainer. So maybe those are all good things. I couldn't talk myself into Goldie, but maybe he'll run better than I expect him to in this race. There are certainly some things to like about him. Number 9 is Drama Chorus. I think they have him pegged at a really, really nice price on the morning line. First of all, this is a horse who really likes this turf course here at Canterbury. It could be a pretty big edge for him, because many of the shorter price in this race have never run over this turf course. This horse really likes it. He went 4 for 5 over this turf course last year, not meeting these kinds of horses, but he just showed up and he ran well every single time. And I feel like he's even, taken steps forward as he's come back this year as a 5-year-old, especially in the 2 starts at Tampa. 95 buyer back in March off of a little bit of a layoff. The horse that beat him there, a recent import from France, is undefeated in his career right now. This horse had the lead, Drama Chorus, to the deep stretch of that race, just got nailed at the end. I thought he ran well that day. He came back in the Turf Classic, stretched out to a mile and an eighth for that race. We'll take a look at the replay right now. He kind of had all the best of it here. They made it to the lead with him early on in that race, and they didn't really have to work to get there. So he was just sort of in charge of that pace all the way around the track. And he had something left. They came for him finally around the turn. He had something left there. You see him through the stretch, just driving, he kicked away from that field again. And he just, stays on pretty gamey to hold on at the end of this race. I thought he ran well again. It's another mid-90s buyer for him. His recent form's good. He likes this turf course. He's got speed to be forward. He's another horse who it does kind of feel like he's probably at his best when he can make the early lead, and maybe that works against him here. I don't know. I found it really difficult to dismiss this horse, even if the pace is maybe not exactly how he wants it to play out. To me, he's just too big a price on the morning line. If he goes off around that 12-1, I'm going to have to use him just because I like his recent races, although I realize that he's going to need to work out the right trick to beat this field. The 10 is Rochambeau. He's just a horse who has to improve quite a bit if he's going to beat this field. He comes off of a loss, his first start against other winners at Keeneland in his most recent start, which was off of a layoff. I mean, I think you want to, keep that in mind, because it was a kind of race where even off the layoff, a horse who had not really shown a ton of early speed in his prior races, they went forward with him last time off the layoff. And it's not like he had an easy time making the lead in that race. He had to work a little bit to clear it around the first turn. He made the pace up the backstretch, but he wasn't really allowed to rate it. And he got tired in the stretch of that race. But to me, it just sort of looked like the race that he probably really needed off of the long layoff. So maybe he's ready to take a step forward. Now, I personally don't know how much improvement you're really going to get out of a horse like him. He's already 6 years old. He's only 1 for 13. And he's got 6 seconds as opposed to the 1 win. So he has a real habit of settling in his races, which I don't love. He's not really fast enough at this point to beat this field. He just has to improve a lot. I don't mind his race off the layoff, though. Maybe he really needed that. I really respect this trainer, sort of shipping him in, stepping him right up into a station. I think those are all good signs for Rochambeau. And he's going to be a big price in this race if you found things that you liked about him. The number 11 is Dynamite. I think Dynamite can win this race as well, but he's another horse who is at his absolute best when he's part of the pace, when he goes forward and is able to race up close early in his races. And that could really work against him here, especially breaking from this outside post. It doesn't really leave his rider, if Laurent Giroux is going to ship in to ride him, it doesn't really leave him with a ton of options in this race from post, I guess it'll be post 10 now, with the scratch coming up. This horse has races that make him competitive. I like some of his starts. I don't like his most recent race at Fairgrounds all that much, but he did stumble at the start of that race before he raced up to sort of press and contest that pace for a long way. He got tired in the stretch of that race, but maybe he had a reason to. He had some things going against him in that spot. His race 2 starts back in the Connolly, where they stretched him all the way out, is actually a little bit of an underrated performance. That pace was pretty solid, and it went to closers at the end. I thought this horse ran pretty well in that race. He has races that I think make him a real contender in here. I don't love his running style, and I don't love the outside post. The 12 is Agent Peter Graves, who we touched on at the Open a little bit, because he wants to be forward. He's 2 for 2 over this turf course. That's a good thing. He's never run a race that's going to make him really competitive with this field. He's won 3 of his 5 turf starts, and he's won all of them in wire-to-wire fashion. It just kind of feels like they have to go on ascent here from the far outside post, and they have to do it against the best field that he's ever faced in his life. I think there's just way too much working against Agent Peter Graves. I couldn't like him. We'll see how he runs as he steps way up in class here for the Mystic Lake Mile. It's A really, really good race. I think a lot of different horses can win here. We'll put the picks up there right now. I'm going to take a shot with a horse at a better price, though. I feel like this is the kind of race where you don't want to settle for anyone at any kind of a short pricing area. I feel like Street Ready, the number one, is going to wind up being a fair price in this race. And I really like his form overall. And I really like his last race. I think he ran a lot better than it looks in his last race, where he just didn't really have any chance to make a serious impact. He's going to I think he's going to fall into a really good trip from the rail here. And he's 8-1 on the morning line. That was good enough for me. I put Street Ready on top. I put Spanish Kingdom, the number 2, second. I went 1, 2, 6, and 9 in race number 7 on Wednesday night at Canterbury Park. It's a good one. It's a Mystic Lake Mile, $100,000 purse. The approximate post time is 9:14 Eastern time. Good luck.